My son sent me a message that tore my soul apart. You are not invited to the launch. My partner thinks it is best. After having invested $2 million in his company. After having given him everything in life. Everything. My name is Odessa. I am 67 years old, and I thought I had seen everything in this life. But I never imagined that my own son, the person for whom I sacrificed absolutely everything, would write me such cold, cruel, heart-wrenching words. $2 million. Do you know what that amount means for a woman like me? It is the sale of my house, my mother's inheritance. It is the savings of 40 years of work, 12 hours a day cleaning office buildings downtown and taking care of the elderly. It is every single dollar I saved, denying myself treats, vacations, or new clothes. It is my future, my old age, my peace of mind, all converted into numbers in a bank account that bears the name of Lysander. And now, 6 months after handing him that check, I receive this message that sticks like a dagger in my chest. My partner thinks it is best, as if I were an embarrassment, as if I were a burden, as if I were not the woman who brought him into this world and raised him alone when his coward of a father walked out on us. I read the message once, twice, 3 times. The words do not change, but something inside me is changing. Something that had been asleep for years. Something I had buried under layers and layers of unconditional love and maternal sacrifice. Vesper. That woman who has never addressed a word to me directly, who always looks through me as if I were invisible when I come to visit him. That woman who, little by little, was poisoning my son's mind against me, whispering in his ear that his mother was too meddlesome, too present, too annoying. I remember the first time I saw her. Lysander had invited me to see the company offices. He was so excited to show me what he had achieved with our investment. What did he tell me then? I arrived wearing a red dress that I had bought especially for the occasion. Nervous, but proud. I wanted to make a good impression. Vesper greeted me with a forced smile, a handshake that was limp and damp, and then she ignored me completely. Throughout the entire visit, she spoke only to Lysander, as if I were part of the furniture. When I asked a question about the expansion plans, she answered me with condescension, as if I were a child who did not understand business. Silent investors generally do not participate in operational decisions, she told me with that little smirk that I now hate to remember. Silent investor. That was what she wanted me to be. She wanted me to give my money and keep my mouth shut, to disappear. And Lysander said nothing. He did not defend me. He did not correct his partner. He did not explain to her that I was not just any random investor, but his mother. He just stood there, uncomfortable, as if my questions were inappropriate. That night, I cried in my bed, feeling small and humiliated. But I told myself it was just a misunderstanding, that things would improve with time. How naive I was. From that day on, things only got worse. Lysander started canceling our Sunday dinners, the ones we had kept religiously for years. I am sorry, Mama, but I have an important meeting. He would tell me over the phone, and I could hear Vesper's voice in the background giving him instructions about something. After that, he stopped calling me every day like he used to. Then he stopped telling me about his work, about his plans. When I asked him how the company was doing, he answered with one-word answers, as if I were a curious stranger and not the person who had made that whole project possible. Vesper says it is better to maintain a certain professional distance, he explained to me once when I asked why he had become so reserved. Professional distance with his own mother. But I kept waiting. I kept believing that when the company was successful, when it was stable, Lysander would remember who had been there from the beginning, who had believed in him when nobody else did. Now reading this devastating message, all those memories hit me like an avalanche. I sit on the sofa in my small apartment, the same sofa where Lysander used to fall asleep watching movies when he was a boy, and I let the tears fall freely for the first time in months. I close my eyes and go back to the past. I go back to those years when it was just him and me against the world, when his father Enoch abandoned us without explanation, without a goodbye, without even a note. Lysander was 5 years old, and for weeks he asked me where Daddy was, why he was not coming home. I did not know what to answer him because even I did not understand how someone could leave like that, leaving a family behind. I remember the nights when I worked cleaning corporate offices until 3 in the morning after having spent the whole day taking care of Miss Hattie, an elderly woman with dementia who required constant attention. I would arrive home exhausted, my hands cracked from the cleaning chemicals, and find Lysander sleeping in my bed because he was afraid to be alone in his room. "Mama, why do you work so hard?" he would ask me with those big, curious eyes. "So that you can have everything you need, my baby," I would answer, kissing his forehead while I carried him back to his bed. Everything he needed and more, much more. When Lysander told me he wanted to study at a private university, I knew I did not have the money, but I got a second job on the weekends cleaning houses in the wealthy suburbs out in Buckhead. My hands bled from scrubbing floors so much. My knees swelled from being on them for so many hours. But it was worth it to see Lysander's smile when I told him yes, that he could study wherever he wanted. "Seriously, Mama, can I study computer science?" "You can study whatever your heart desires, son. I will handle the rest." And I handled it. For 5 years, I paid for that university that cost a fortune. I sold my mother's jewelry. I pawned everything of value I had. I worked until my body hurt in places I did not even know existed. But I did it with love, with pride, with the certainty that I was investing in my son's future. When Lysander graduated, it was the happiest day of my life. I watched him walk across that stage, receive his diploma, and I thought that everything had been worth it. He hugged me so tight that day. He whispered in my ear, "Thank you, Mama. All of this is thanks to you. I am never going to forget it." Never going to forget it. What irony. After that came the years of job hunting. Lysander had big dreams, but the job market was difficult for a young black man, no matter his degree. I kept supporting him, paying his rent, his food, his expenses. Why? Because I believed in him. Because I knew that one day he would triumph. "Do not worry, son. Take the time you need. I am here." And there I was, always there. When he had his first low-paying job, I supplemented his salary so he could live decently. When he wanted to take a specialization course, I paid every penny. When he dreamed of having his own business, I was the first to support him. "Mama, I have a revolutionary idea," he told me one afternoon with that energy he radiated when he talked about technology. "But I need initial capital." "How much do you need?" "It is a lot of money, Mama. I do not know if—" "Tell me how much." "Millions, $2 million. Silence filled the room. Millions of dollars. It was everything I had, and more. I would have to sell my house, the only security I had left. Use my mother's inheritance that I had saved for my old age. Liquidate my life savings. But when I saw his eyes, when I heard the passion in his voice explaining the project to me, when he told me he was going to change the world of technology, I did not hesitate for a second. "All right, son, count on me." His smile that day lit up the whole room. He hugged me like when he was a child. He lifted me off the floor and spun me around. "You are the best mother in the world, Mama. I promise you this is going to work. I promise I am going to pay back every penny with interest. I promise I am never going to forget what you are doing for me." Promises. All broken now like glass on the floor. I signed the papers, transferred the money, sold my house, and moved into this small apartment. It is worth it, I told myself. It was for Lysander, for his future, for his dreams. The first few months after the investment were like a honeymoon. Lysander called me every day to tell me about the progress. He sent me photos of the offices they had rented downtown. He introduced me via video call to the employees they were hiring. I felt like part of something big, part of my son's dream. "Look, Mama, this is our boardroom," he would say, showing me a modern room with a long table and ergonomic chairs. And this is where we work on the software development. Our company, he said. Our project. I got excited like a little girl, imagining the day I could visit them and see with my own eyes everything we had built together. But then Vesper appeared. At first, Lysander talked to me about her just as another colleague. I hired a specialist in digital marketing, Mama. Her name is Vesper, and she has a lot of experience. Then he started mentioning her more often. Vesper says we should focus our strategy on this sector. Vesper has important contacts that can help us. Vesper, Vesper, Vesper. The first time I saw her was during a video call. Lysander was showing me the new computers they had bought when she appeared on the screen. A young woman, maybe 32 years old, with sleek hair perfectly styled and an impeccable white blouse. She looked sophisticated, educated, successful. Everything I never was. Vesper, introduce yourself to my mom, Odessa, Lysander said with a smile. She greeted me with a smile that did not reach her eyes. Nice to meet you, Mrs. Odessa. Lysander has told me a lot about you. Something in her tone made me uncomfortable from the first moment. There was a coldness, a calculated distance in the way she spoke to me, as if she were complying with a mandatory social protocol. The pleasure is mine, Vesper. Lysander tells me you are very talented. Well, I do what I can to make the company grow, she replied, and then she turned exclusively to Lysander. We need to review the numbers for the ad campaign before the 3 o'clock meeting. And just like that, without further ado, she ignored me completely. Lysander kept talking to me for a few more minutes, but I could feel Vesper's presence in the background, impatient, as if my presence were an annoying interruption in her workday. That night, I could not sleep well. There was something about that woman that disturbed me, but I did not know exactly what. I told myself it was just the foolish jealousy of an overprotective mother, that I should be happy Lysander had a partner. But the following days confirmed my suspicions. Lysander began to change subtly. His calls became shorter, more formal. When I asked him about the company, he gave me vague and general answers. How are sales going, son? Good, Mama. Everything is going according to plan. And the product? Is it ready to launch? Vesper is taking care of those details. She knows more about marketing than I do. Vesper again. Always Vesper. One day I decided to visit them without warning. I wanted to surprise them, bring them lunch, and see how everything was going. I put on my best dress, the emerald green one I had bought for Lysander's graduation. I fixed my hair and bought those sweet potato turnovers from the bakery my son loved so much. When I arrived at the offices, the receptionist looked at me strangely. Do you have an appointment with Mr. Lysander? I am his mother. I just wanted to say hello. The girl looked nervous. 1 moment, please. She disappeared down a hallway and returned 5 minutes later, accompanied by Vesper. That woman walked toward me with firm, sure steps, like a general marching into battle. Mrs. Odessa, what a surprise to see you here. I brought lunch for Lysander and for the whole team, I said, lifting the bag with the turnovers. How considerate of you. But Lysander is in a very important meeting with potential clients. He cannot be interrupted. I can wait for him. I'm afraid the meeting will run for several hours. Perhaps it would be better if you coordinated your visits in advance. Coordinated my visits, as if I were a salesperson trying to pitch a product, not the mother of the owner of the company, not the woman who had made it possible for that company to exist. It will only be a few minutes, I insisted. Vesper smiled, but it was a frozen, calculated smile. I understand that as a mother you want to be present, but you must understand that this is a serious business. Interruptions can be very costly when we are trying to close important contracts. I felt small, humiliated, like a child being scolded by a teacher. But what hurt me the most was that Lysander never appeared. He did not even come out to say hello, to thank me for the lunch, to explain the situation. He left me standing there, being scolded by his partner as if I were an intruder. I understand, I murmured, feeling my voice break. Tell Lysander I stopped by to say hello. Of course, he will call you later. But Lysander did not call me that night, nor the next day. When we finally spoke 3 days later, his explanation was brief and cold. "Mama, Vesper told me you went to the office. You know we are in a very delicate stage of the business. I need you to respect our work schedule." Our schedule. As if I were a stranger asking for favors, not the person who had invested her entire net worth in that business. From that day on, the distance between Lysander and me became an abyss that grew every week. The daily calls turned into weekly calls, then into sporadic calls when he had time. Our Sunday dinners, that sacred tradition we had maintained since he was a boy, started to be canceled systematically. "I am sorry, Mama, but I have to work," he would always say with the same excuse. Vesper organized a strategy meeting for Sunday. A strategy meeting on a Sunday, the day we had dedicated exclusively to us for years. "Can't you do it another day, son? It is the only time we can all get together." "Do you know how business works, Mama?" No, I did not know how business worked. I had worked all my life cleaning, caring for the elderly, doing manual labor. I had never been in the corporate world of strategy meetings and PowerPoint presentations. But I did know what it was to sacrifice everything for family, something Lysander was apparently forgetting rapidly. The months passed, and I became a spectator of my own son's life. I found out about the company's achievements through his posts on social media, not because he told me. I saw photos of team dinners, celebrations for closed contracts, business trips, and in all those photos was Vesper, always Vesper, smiling next to Lysander as if they owned the world. One night, scrolling through Facebook, I saw a photo that broke my heart. Lysander was in an elegant restaurant, toasting with a glass of wine. The caption said, "Celebrating the first million in sales with the best team in the world." There were 5 people at the table, all young, professional, well-dressed, and in the center, like a queen, was Vesper, the first million in sales. My son had reached that goal, and I had found out on Facebook like any stranger. He had not called me to tell me. He had not invited me to celebrate. He had not thanked me for making that moment possible. That night I cried until I ran out of tears. I called Lysander the next day, pretending I had not seen the post. "Son, how is everything going at the company?" "Good, Mama. Everything normal." "No news you want to tell me?" An uncomfortable silence. "No, nothing special." Nothing special. The first million in sales of his company, financed with my life savings, was nothing special. "Lysander, I saw on Facebook that you all celebrated something last night." Another longer silence this time. "Oh, yeah. It was just a small celebration with the work team." "And I am not part of the team?" "Mama, you are the investor. It is different." The investor. I was no longer his mother, his partner, his companion in dreams. I was simply the investor, a number on his balance sheet. "Lysander, I am not just any investor. I am your mother. I invested my life savings because I believed in you." "I know, Mama, and I am very grateful to you. But Vesper says it is important to keep family roles separated from professional roles," Vesper says. It was always Vesper who said, who opined, who made the decisions about how I, his own mother, should be treated. "And what do you say, Lysander? What do you think?" I think Vesper is right. She has a lot of experience in these matters." That was the final stab. My son, the boy I had raised alone, whom I had educated with love and sacrifice, was choosing the opinion of a stranger over his mother's feelings. The following months were a silent ordeal. Lysander communicated with me only when it was strictly necessary, always with the formal tone of someone fulfilling an uncomfortable obligation. When I asked him about the company, he gave me vague and evasive answers. When I suggested visiting them, there was always an excuse. They were too busy. They had important clients. Vesper had scheduled special events. Vesper. That woman had become the filter between my son and me. It was she who decided when it was appropriate for me to know something, when it was convenient for me to participate in some activity, and Lysander let her do it like an obedient child, following the instructions of his new authority figure. One day, desperate to regain connection with my son, I decided to do something I had never done. I confronted him directly. "Lysander, we need to talk. I feel like you are pushing me out of your life." "Do not be dramatic, Mama. I am just very busy with work." "It is not just work, son. It is as if you have decided that I no longer have a place in your life." "That is not true." "Then explain to me why you tell me nothing anymore, why you cancel our dinners, why I find out about important news regarding your company on social media." Lysander sighed as if my question were a nuisance. "Mama, you have to understand that I am not a child anymore. I have responsibilities. I have a business to run. And I have the right to know how the business I financed with my life savings is going. Of course you have the right. I send you the financial reports every month." Financial reports? Cold numbers on a page, without context, without explanation, without the human connection I craved. "I do not want just numbers, Lysander. I want you to tell me how you feel, what challenges you face, what plans you have. I want to be part of your life, not just a name on your list of investors." "Mama, that is exactly the problem," Lysander told me with a tone of frustration he had never used with me before. "You confuse your role as an investor with your role as a mother. Vesper has helped me to understand that that mixture is toxic for the business." Toxic. My motherly love was toxic for his business. Toxic? Is that what Vesper calls the love I have for you? It is not about love. It is about professionalism. I need you to respect my decisions as a businessman. And when did I stop respecting them? When did I interfere in any decision? When I come to the office unannounced? When I ask questions about topics that are not my business? When you act as if you were the owner of the company? His words hit me like slaps. It was not my place to ask about the company I had financed. Acting like the owner of the business to which I had destined every penny of my savings was wrong. "Lysander, I invested $2 million. "And I am paying you interest on that investment," he interrupted me. "You receive your financial return monthly. What else do you want?" What else did I want? I wanted my son back. I wanted him to value me, to respect me, to remember who had believed in him when no one else did. But that could not be bought with monthly financial returns. "I want you to treat me like your mother, not like a bank." "Then stop behaving like a creditor and behave like a mother." That conversation ended with Lysander hanging up on me, and I was left sitting in my small apartment, surrounded by photos of a boy who no longer existed. The boy who hugged me tight at his graduation, who promised me he would never forget what I had done for him, who swore we would always be together. The weeks that followed were of a deafening silence. Lysander did not call me. He did not reply to my texts. He did not answer my emails. It was as if he had decided that I no longer existed in his life. But the company kept growing. I saw the news online. Local tech startup reaches $3 million in sales. Young entrepreneur revolutionizes the market with innovative digital platform. The perfect duo, Lysander and Vesper, conquer the tech sector. The perfect duo. That was what the specialized press called them. As if they had built that company from scratch. As if they had risked their own savings. As if they had sacrificed their future to make that dream come true. In those interviews, Lysander talked about the challenges they had faced, about the sleepless nights developing the product, about the passion that moved them. But he never mentioned where the initial capital had come from. He never talked about the woman who had made all that possible. I had been erased from the official history of his success. One night, while surfing the internet looking for news of the company, I found something that destroyed me completely. It was a video interview where a journalist asked Lysander about his beginnings as an entrepreneur. "What was the most difficult moment in building your company?" the interviewer asked. "Without a doubt, getting the initial investment," Lysander answered with that charming smile I knew so well. "Vesper and I knocked on many doors. We presented our project to dozens of investors, but everyone told us we were too young, that the market was too competitive." "And how did you finally manage to get the capital?" Lysander exchanged a complicit look with Vesper, who was sitting next to him. "We were lucky to find an investor who believed in our vision, someone who understood the potential of our project. An investor. A stranger who had believed in their vision, not his mother, who had mortgaged her future out of love. "Can you tell us who that visionary investor was?" the journalist insisted. "We prefer to keep that information private," Vesper intervened with a diplomatic smile. "Our initial investor prefers anonymity." Anonymity. They had turned their own mother into an anonymous investor. When I finished watching that interview, something broke definitely inside me. It was not just pain I felt, it was humiliation, betrayal. A feeling of having been completely erased from the life of the most important person in the world to me. That night, I made a decision. I called Lysander and left him a voicemail because, as always, he did not answer. "Son, I just saw your interview in Tech Weekly. I am glad to know that your anonymous investor is so satisfied with the results. I think it is time we have a serious conversation about the future of that investment." It was the first time in months I used a firm tone with him. A tone that made it clear I was not asking for a favor, but demanding an answer. Lysander called me the next day, but he did not sound like the affectionate son I remembered. He sounded like an annoyed executive who had to deal with a minor problem. "Mama, I heard your message. What do you want to talk about?" "I want to talk about my place in your life and in your company." "We already talked about that. You are an important investor. You receive your dividends." "I do not want to be an anonymous investor, Lysander. I want to be recognized as what I am, your mother and the person who made your company possible." A long silence. Then Vesper's voice in the background. "Tell her we are in an important meeting right now." And then Lysander told me something I never thought I would hear from his lips. "Mama, Vesper is right. We are in a very delicate stage of growth, and we cannot allow family issues to interfere with the business." Family issues. I had become a family issue that interfered with his business. After that call, I stayed in bed for 3 days. 3 days crying, wondering where I had failed as a mother, what I had done wrong to deserve this treatment. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a 67-year-old woman who had dedicated her entire life to a son who now considered her a burden. But on the 4th day, something changed. I got up, showered, dressed with care, and decided I was not going to keep begging for love. I was not going to keep begging for a place in the life of someone who had clearly decided I was no longer important. I called my friend Eudora, the only person who had been with me through all these difficult years. Eudora worked at the bank where I had my accounts. She had processed the transfer of the $2 million. She had seen my sacrifice firsthand. "Eudora, I need to review all the documents from the investment I made in Lysander's company." "Of course, Odessa. Is everything okay?" "No, it is not okay, but it is going to be." That afternoon, Eudora came to my apartment with a folder full of papers, contracts, agreements, transfers, legal documents I had signed 6 months ago when I still believed I was investing in my son's future, not financing my own exclusion from his life. We reviewed every document carefully. The contract was clear. I had the right to withdraw my investment with 30 days prior notice. I also had the right to audit the company's finances and to participate in important decisions as a capital partner. "Odessa," Eudora told me after reading everything, "legally, you have a lot of power in that company. You are the majority shareholder." Majority shareholder. I had forgotten that detail. With my $2 million, I owned 60% of the company's shares. Lysander and Vesper held the remaining 40% between the two of them. "That means I can take important decisions?" "It means that without your approval, they cannot make any important decision. And it also means that if you decide to withdraw your investment, the company probably would not survive." That night, I did not sleep. But it was not from sadness. This time, it was from clarity. For the first time in months, I saw the situation with total sharpness. I was not a helpless victim begging for love. I was a businesswoman who had made an investment and had rights. Rights I had been ignoring while I allowed them to treat me like a nuisance. The next day, I made a decision that would change everything. I called Lysander, but this time it was not the pleading mother of always. It was Odessa, the majority shareholder of his company. Lysander, I need you to schedule an urgent meeting. I want to review the company's financial statements and discuss some important changes. Mama, we are very busy this week. I am not asking you as your mother. I am informing you as the majority shareholder. The meeting is mandatory according to our contract. A surprised silence. Lysander did not expect this tone from me. Okay, when do you want to meet? Tomorrow at 10 in the morning, and I want Vesper to be present too. Vesper? Why? Because apparently she makes many important decisions in my company without consulting me. It is time for that to change. I hung up the phone feeling a strength I had not experienced in years. It was not revenge I sought. It was respect. It was recognition. It was the place that belonged to me by my own right. That night, I prepared everything meticulously. I reviewed every document, every financial statement I had received, every transfer I had made. I dressed in my most formal suit, the black one I had used for important church functions, and applied my makeup with care. I was not going to arrive as the hurt mother begging for attention. I was going to arrive as the businesswoman I was. When I arrived at the offices the next day, the receptionist looked at me with the same strangeness as always. Good morning. I am Odessa, majority shareholder of this company. I have a meeting scheduled with Lysander and Vesper. The words majority shareholder changed her attitude completely. Suddenly, she straightened up, smiled nervously, and rushed to call Lysander. Mr. Lysander, Mrs. Odessa is here for the meeting. 5 minutes later, Lysander and Vesper appeared. My son looked uncomfortable, nervous, as if he did not know what to expect. Vesper, on the other hand, maintained her usual cold composure, but there was something in her eyes that indicated to me that she was not prepared for this version of me either. Mama, Lysander started. Odessa, I corrected him. In this meeting, I am Odessa, your business partner. We headed to the boardroom. That same room Lysander had shown me with such pride months ago. But now I was not a visitor. I was the owner of 60% of everything my eyes saw. I sat at the head of the table, the place that corresponded to me as the majority shareholder. Lysander and Vesper sat opposite me, and for the first time in months, it was I who had control of the situation. Fine, I began, opening my folder with all the documents. We have several important things to discuss. First, I said, placing the documents on the table, I want a detailed explanation of why I have not been consulted on important decisions you have made in the last 3 months. Lysander exchanged a nervous look with Vesper. Mama, Odessa, I do not understand what you are referring to. I pulled out a printed sheet. According to these records, you hired 5 new employees, opened a second office, and signed an advertising contract for $200,000, all without my approval. Vesper leaned forward with that condescending smile I hated so much. Odessa, those are normal operational decisions. We do not need to approve every minor expense with the investors. $200,000 is a minor expense? I looked her directly in the eyes. And I am not the investors. I am the investor, the majority shareholder with 60% of the shares. Vesper's smile faltered for the first time. Lysander looked increasingly uncomfortable. Furthermore, I continued, I have been reviewing the interviews you have given to the media. In none do you mention the origin of the initial capital. You have turned me into an anonymous investor. We thought you would prefer to maintain your privacy, Lysander murmured. My privacy or your comfort? My voice hardened. Because it is very convenient to build a narrative where you two are the only heroes of this story. Vesper tried to regain control. Odessa, I understand that as Lysander's mother you feel— Stop right there, I interrupted her. In this room, I am not Lysander's mother. I am his business partner, and as such, I demand the respect that corresponds to me. A tense silence filled the room. Lysander played nervously with a pen, avoiding my gaze. Vesper maintained her composure, but I could see she was calculating her next move. Very well, Vesper finally said. What do you propose? I propose several things. First, I want to be included in all important decisions from now on. Second, I want the public narrative about the origin of the company corrected. Third, I want a detailed weekly report of all operations. That is micromanagement, Vesper protested. It is my right as majority shareholder. If you do not like it, you can buy my shares at the current market price. Lysander lifted his head for the first time. What would that price be? I smiled. I had done my homework. According to the current valuation of the company, based on your $3 million in sales and the projections you yourselves have published, my 60% is worth approximately $8 million. The color drained from Lysander's face. Vesper went rigid. $8 million, I repeated. You can pay me that amount and keep the whole company, or you can accept my conditions and move forward with a partner who demands respect. We do not have $8 million available, Lysander admitted in a low voice. I imagined. Then I suppose we will have to learn to work together in a more collaborative manner. Vesper finally lost her composure. This is ridiculous. You are blackmailing your own son. I stood up slowly, maintaining the calm I had practiced all the night before. No, Vesper. This is a 67-year-old woman who finally decided to stop allowing herself to be treated like an idiot. Mama, please, Lysander intervened. You do not have to be so harsh. Harsh? I looked at him with a mixture of sadness and determination. Lysander, for 6 months, you have treated me as if I were a nuisance. You have allowed your partner to disrespect me. You have excluded me from important celebrations. You have denied my existence in public interviews. And when I finally demand the respect I deserve, I am the harsh one? Lysander lowered his gaze, unable to hold my eyes. You have 2 options, I continued. Accept my conditions, and we start working as real partners, or I find a lawyer and exercise all my legal rights to protect my investment. Vesper stood up abruptly. We need time to discuss this. Of course. You have until tomorrow at 5 p.m. to give me an answer. While I gathered my documents, Lysander finally spoke. Mama, Odessa, would you really do that? Would you really put the company at risk? I looked him in the eyes. This 30-year-old man who was once my baby, and I felt a mixture of love and disappointment that split my soul. Lysander, I am not putting anything at risk. You are the ones who decided to treat me as if I were invisible. I'm only reminding you that I exist, that I have rights, and that I deserve respect. I walked toward the door, but before leaving, I turned around one last time. And just so it is clear, this is not revenge. This is dignity. I walked out of those offices feeling something I had not experienced in months. Power. Not the power to hurt, but the power to defend myself. The power to demand what corresponded to me by right. That night, Lysander called me 3 times. I did not answer any calls. If he wanted to talk to me, he would have to do it on business terms, with respect, with recognition of who I really was in his life and in his company. The next day I waited. 5 p.m. arrived and passed without news. At 5:30, my phone rang. It was Lysander, but his voice sounded different, defeated. Odessa, we need to talk. I am listening. Can we meet? We can. Vesper and I have been discussing your proposals and, a long sigh, we accept your conditions, all of them. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Satisfaction because finally I had regained my place. Sadness because I had to go to these extremes for my own son to respect me. Very well. Tomorrow at 9 a.m, I want the first weekly meeting. And Lysander... Yes? I want Vesper to be present when you apologize to me. A silence. Apologize? For 6 months of disrespect, for making me invisible, for treating me as if I were a nuisance instead of the person who made your dreams possible. Odessa, Tomorrow at 9, Lysander. That night I slept better than I had slept in months, but my peace of mind lasted little. The next day, when I arrived at the offices, a surprise awaited me that would change everything definitively. Lysander was at the reception desk, pale as a ghost. "Odessa, we have a serious problem." "What kind of problem?" "Vesper. Vesper quit last night and took 3 of our key employees with her." I felt as if I'd been punched in the stomach. "What do you mean she took employees?" "She formed her own company. She offered them better salaries and took our chief technology officer, our marketing manager, and our lead developer." We walked into her office, which looked strangely empty. Vesper's desk was clean, without a trace of her presence. "But that is not all," Lysander continued, his voice breaking. "She also took our 3 biggest clients. Apparently, she had clauses in her contracts that allowed her to take the accounts if she left the company." I sat down slowly, processing the magnitude of what I was hearing. "What does that mean for the company?" "It means we lost 70% of our revenue overnight. It means that without those key employees, we cannot fulfill the projects we have pending. It means that—" His voice broke completely. "It means the company is bankrupt, Mama." Mama. After months of calling me Odessa, of treating me like a cold business partner, he finally went back to calling me Mama. But it was too late. "How much time do we have?" I asked with a calm that surprised even myself. "If we do not get new clients in the next 2 weeks, we will have to close. We cannot pay payroll, rent, nothing." I remained silent for several minutes, looking out the window of that office that had been my son's dream. Lysander was crying silently with his head in his hands. "Mama, I am so sorry. I am sorry I treated you badly. I am sorry I allowed Vesper to disrespect you. I am sorry I was so blind." Finally, I looked at him. This 30-year-old man looked like a scared child, like the 5-year-old boy who cried when his father abandoned us. "Lysander, there is something you need to understand. Vesper did not do this last night. She had been planning this for months." "What do you mean?" "Everything. Pushing me away from the company, making you believe I was a problem, ensuring I did not have information about daily operations. She was manipulating you to keep me away while she built her own network." Lysander raised his head, his eyes red from crying. "You knew?" "I did not know exactly what she planned, but I knew something was not right. A woman does not treat her partner's mother so badly without having hidden motives." "And why didn't you tell me anything?" "Would you have listened to me? For 6 months I tried to get close to you, and you always chose Vesper's opinion over mine." Lysander got up and started pacing the office like a caged animal. "What are we going to do? I cannot ask you for more money. You already lost enough because of me." "Who said anything about losing money?" He looked at me confused. "The company is bankrupt, Mama. You lost your investment." "Lysander, there is something Vesper never understood, and that you apparently also forgot." "What?" "I am not just an investor with money. I am a woman who worked for 40 years, who knows the value of effort, who knows what it is to build something from scratch." I stood up and walked toward him. "Vesper took employees and clients, but she did not take your talent. She did not take your knowledge, and she definitely did not take your mother." "I do not understand." "We are going to rebuild this company, Lysander, but this time we are going to do it right, as real partners, as family." For the first time in months, I saw a glimmer of hope in my son's eyes. "Would you do that for me, after everything I did to you?" "I am not doing it for you, Lysander. I am doing it for us, because finally you learned to value what you have, and I learned to demand the respect I deserve." 6 months after that conversation in the empty office, I am sitting on the terrace of my new apartment. The one I was able to buy after our rebuilt company surpassed the sales of the previous year. I drink my morning coffee while I review the weekly financial statements that Lysander sends me religiously every Monday. Our company. Because now, it really is ours. After Vesper left, Lysander and I spent 3 weeks working 18 hours a day. He took care of the technical side. I used my 40 years of experience dealing with people to approach new clients. It turns out that a 67-year-old woman who has worked all her life knows a lot about customer service, about building genuine relationships, about earning people's trust. The first time I accompanied Lysander to a commercial presentation, he was nervous. "Mama, these are important executives. They speak a very corporate language." "Son," I told him, adjusting my mint green blazer, "I have spent 40 years convincing difficult people to trust me. From grumpy old men to demanding bosses, this is not so different." And I was right. While Lysander explained the technical aspects of our software, I connected with the clients as people. I asked them about their true needs, about their frustrations, about what they really wanted to achieve. I did not talk about product features. I talked about solutions to real problems. At the end of that first presentation, the client not only signed the contract, but recommended us to 3 more companies. "I have never seen such a human approach in a technology company," he told us. That night, Lysander hugged me like he had not done in years. "Mama, you are incredible. Vesper never would have gotten that account." Vesper knew a lot about technology, I replied, but she never understood that business is done between people, not between computers. The following months were of constant growth. We hired new employees, but this time I participated in every interview. We wanted people who shared our values: respect, honesty, teamwork, no toxic egos, no manipulations, no making anyone feel invisible. Lysander changed completely. Now he calls me every day, not out of obligation, but because he genuinely wants to share his day with me. Our Sunday dinners resumed, but now they are even better because we talk as partners, as family, as people who respect each other mutually. "Do you know what I regret the most?" he told me one night over dinner. "Having allowed Vesper to convince me that your love was a weakness. It was not your fault, son. She was very skilled at manipulating." "Yes, it was my fault, Mama. I chose to listen to her instead of listening to my heart. I chose to believe that success meant moving away from you instead of building with you." A month ago, we received a call that made us laugh until we cried. It was one of the former employees who had left with Vesper. "Could you consider taking me back? Vesper's company is not doing well, and I miss the family atmosphere you guys had." Lysander looked at me before answering. "What do you think, partner?" "I think second chances have to be earned," I replied. "If he wants to come back, let him start from the bottom and prove he understands our values." Now that employee is one of our most loyal, and he always says he had never worked in a place where he felt so valued as a person. Last week, a business magazine asked us for an interview about our success. This time, when the journalist asked about our beginnings, Lysander answered without hesitation. "Everything started with my mother, Odessa. She not only invested her money in my dream, she invested her trust, her experience, her love. Without her, none of this would exist." The report was published with the title, "The Mother-Son Duo Revolutionizing the Tech Sector with Family Values." This morning, while I drink my coffee and check the company numbers, I think about everything we have built together. Not just a successful company, but a relationship stronger than ever. Lysander learned that success without family is not true success. I learned that love without respect is not true love. My phone rings. It is Lysander, like every morning. "Good morning, partner. Did you check the numbers for the week?" "Good morning, son. Yes, I checked them. Another excellent week." "You know what? I think it is time to expand internationally. What do you think if we start exploring the London market?" I smile while looking at the skyline from my terrace. I think it is an excellent idea, but this time, let's make sure we find partners who understand that business is built with respect, not with manipulation. Always, Mama, always. When I hang up the phone, I stay a few minutes more on the terrace, enjoying the morning breeze. I think about the woman I was a year ago, begging for love, allowing herself to be treated as invisible, doubting her own worth. That woman no longer exists. In her place is Odessa, businesswoman, partner, respected mother, a woman who learned that it is never too late to demand the place that corresponds to you in the world. And the most beautiful thing of all is that I recovered my son. But this time on terms of equality, of mutual respect, of true love. Today, I do not need permission to live. Today, I do not need permission to be happy. Today, I am exactly who I always should have been, a woman who knows her worth and does not accept less than she deserves. This was not revenge. This was liberation. 1 year after that morning on my terrace, I am standing in front of the mirror in my bedroom, getting ready for a very special event. Tonight, our company will receive the Innovation with Human Values Award at the annual National Entrepreneurs Gala. I put on my gold dress, the one I bought especially for this occasion. It is not just a professional celebration. It is the celebration of a woman who learned to shine with her own light after years of living in the shadows. Lysander arrives to pick me up in his new car, but before leaving for the event, he insists that we take a photo together in the living room of my apartment. To remember this moment, Mama. To remember everything we have achieved together. While we head to the hotel where the ceremony will be, I think about everything that has changed. Our company now has 50 employees, offices in 3 countries, and more importantly, a culture of respect and family values that has become our trademark. Nervous? Lysander asks me as we enter the hotel parking lot. Not at all, I answer him with a smile. I do not get nervous anymore when I know I deserve to be where I am. In the hotel lobby, other business people, journalists, and government officials greet us. Many come over to congratulate us. But what moves me the most is when a young businesswoman approaches specifically me. Mrs. Odessa, I read your story in the magazine. I wanted to thank you for demonstrating that it is never too late to demand respect. My mother-in-law had been going through something similar with her family, and your example inspired her to stand up for herself. These moments are the ones that have the most value for me. Knowing that my story can help other women find their own strength, their own voice. During dinner, the presenter tells our story. Tech Family, founded by Lysander and his mother Odessa, has demonstrated that business success and human values can not only coexist, but empower each other. When they call us to the stage to receive the award, Lysander takes me by the arm. You go first, partner. Without you, I would not be here. We go up together, but he yields the microphone to me for the acceptance speech. I look at the audience, at all those successful people, and for a moment, I remember the woman I was 2 years ago. Insecure, asking for crumbs of affection, allowing herself to be treated as invisible. Good evening, I begin with a firm voice. This award is not just a recognition of our company. It is a recognition of all the women who have learned that true love is built on respect, not on silent sacrifice. The audience falls silent, attentive to every word. For many years I believed that being a good mother meant accepting any treatment, forgiving any lack of respect, being always available without expecting anything in return. But I learned that that is not love. That is emotional dependency. I see Lysander by my side, smiling with genuine pride. True love, the love between family, between partners, between any human relationship, is built on the basis of mutual respect. When we demand respect, we are not being selfish. We are teaching others how to value us. Some people in the audience nod, especially other women my age. Today, our company is successful not in spite of family values, but thanks to them. Because when we treat every employee like family, when we respect everyone's ideas, when we value experience as much as youth, we create something more powerful than a company. We create a community. Applause fills the room, but I continue. To the women of my generation who may be listening, it is never too late to demand the place you deserve. To the children who may be present, your mothers are not banks or domestic servants. They are people with wisdom, experience, and rights. And to all entrepreneurs, success without human values is empty. Success with family is eternal. The applause this time is prolonged, standing, emotional. Lysander hugs me on stage and whispers in my ear, "Thank you for teaching me that respect is not begged for, it is demanded." After the ceremony, during the reception, I go to the restroom to touch up my makeup. In the mirror, I see a completely different woman from the one I was 2 years ago, not just because of the elegant dress or the professional makeup, but because of the light in her eyes, because of the upright posture, because of the genuine smile of someone who knows exactly who she is and what she is worth. An older lady approaches me. "Excuse me, are you Odessa from Tech Family?" "Yes, that is me. My name is Gloria. I'm 70 years old, and I just watched your speech on the monitors. I called my son to tell him I want to be part of his business, not just the grandmother who watches the grandkids for free." I get emotional to the point of tears. "Gloria, you are worth much more than they have probably made you believe. Demand your place. Do you think it is not too late?" "Gloria, at 67, I rebuilt my life completely. At 70, you are just getting started." When I return to the reception, Lysander introduces me to other entrepreneurs as his partner and mentor. He no longer introduces me as his mother who invested in the company. Now, I am his partner, his equal, his business companion. At the end of the night, while we return home, Lysander tells me something I will keep in my heart forever. "Mama, I used to think I had succeeded despite family problems. Now I know I have success thanks to having learned to value my family." "And I learned that being a mother does not mean disappearing as a person," I answer him. "It means growing alongside our children, demanding respect along with love." Tonight in my bed before sleeping, I do not think about the award we received or the contracts we will sign tomorrow. I think about all the women who, like Gloria, have learned that it is never too late to demand respect, to shine with their own light, to build relationships based on equality and not on sacrifice. I think that today I am exactly who I always should have been. Odessa, businesswoman, respected mother, complete woman. And tomorrow I will continue to be that woman, because I no longer need anyone's permission to be happy. This was my liberation. This is my new life. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked the story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.